is joining? Someone was entering?
I think it's Corina.
Yes, one more. So, welcome to the MODINA seminar. Let me thank Anna for hosting us in the seminar. So, these three talks that are going to happen now are in the context of the MODINA project and are organized by us from ITI, from the Interactive Technologies Institute from Lisbon. So we are a research lab. We are associated with the University of Lisbon, but we have faculty from different schools from Lisbon. And the talks I'm Diogo, I'm going to talk about multimodality and creativity and Sensemaking tools. We have a remote colleague, a PhD student that is finishing that is in the island of Madeira, that I'm co-supervising. She will give the second talk about human AI. And David will be closing our talk about some other stuff. Big body. So, thank you for being here. So, I'm going to start. So, I'm here, I usually give this talk in my name, but also, this is not only my work. I've been collaborating with a lot of people. I was 2 years at the University of Helsinki in Finland. I'm working to Project Zeros in the European project. So all my work is a collaboration with a lot of people. There are references about my colleagues. And I usually give some theoretical background. So I do my work, I'm a computer scientist. I mostly do my work in what we call the human-computer interaction field. It's a field that studies how humans interact with computers and how and the impact on the machine on that. So how we can design and how we can consider when we are creating software or even hardware, how these things work together. And my theoretical background comes from these scientists, American scientists from the 60s. Lee Kleider, that was one of the senior scientists at the old Pentagon and DARPA institution, and he envisioned in the 60s this idea of the man-computer symbiosis. This idea that we should create, taking the advantage of the computers for one side of the machines, and how we can, and how we as humans, we can do our best. So this idea of symbiosis that both humans and computers, how they can follow, almost like a collaboration, how they can work together, creating this synergy. Okay?
What did you say? Illusion?
Sorry?
Create this illusion?
Synergy.
Synergy. It's my projection.
So I will talk about creativity a little bit, multimodal interfaces, and a little bit of Sensemaking. Sensemaking, it's not, I know that it's not typical in the context of arts, but you can think, I will give you some examples, but let's start with creativity. So there is not I would say, a common definition of creativity, but we know that it's creating something new, okay, associated with something new. Some people can say that it's part of our biology, okay, so there is something in the humankind that we do naturally, that we create things. And also this idea that we have to be, I would say, ideas have to be accepted under a community or a domain has to be new. So there is this kind of start to this current state of the art, and there is something new, and this new idea has to be accepted by one particular community. And what about creativity tools? So if you think about computers, at the beginning, computers were like these big machines in filling a big room, mostly doing computations. So the typical case was doing what we call the probabilistic computation. So just doing mathematics, trying to simulate something physical, something in the physics. So just trying to have an input and try to have an output, a value as an output. But now, as we all know, we start to do things that with computers that support creativity. We can think about video editors, we can think about designers, we can think sound editors, Hollywood, all the special effects. So all of these computational things that we have now, these computational tools, can support creativity somehow. Okay? So one of the main researchers, Ben Schneiderman, that studied this idea in the almost 25 years ago, he selected what would be the, say, by finding a definition or trying to have this framework for creativity support tools, and he highlights these different activities. And especially, I highlight two of them because the ones that I'm really focusing on my work. So this idea of exploring solutions, so the idea of what if, so this idea of if I try that, what is the result? And the composition of artifacts or performance. Okay. And what about multimodal interfaces? So there is a particular definition for this. Multimodal means that we don't just use one input as a way, like using just a mouse or just a keyboard, but using different, like we have the touch screens, we have pens, we have audio. So there is a lot of things that we can use now. So I will focus on 3 case studies that I've been working around from different years. So I will talk about video annotation and editing, information seeking and exploration, and sensory feedback. Okay? So let's start with annotation. So we do know how to annotate static media. So it's very common that we sketch a nose on notebook, on text, and we highlight something. But the challenge started, and a lot of people from this will know this challenge. How I can annotate this? One person that is moving in front of the camera, how we can annotate this? There has been some software that try to do this, but you can see the interfaces are not very user-friendly, as you can see. So there is usually a timeline, but you have to make some notes, you have to use some timestamps, the annotations are out of the video window. So it's not very user-friendly. So one project that I did at the beginning of my PhD, some years ago, a long time ago, so we decided to do this video annotated creation tool. The idea was to how we can implement a video annotator that works like a digital notebook. How we can do something so user-friendly that people can do it as a digital notebook. So we work in this project. So the challenge here was to try to have this tool that you could annotate in different forms, different inputs. So, and the challenge how we can annotate this in 2 ways. One using recording video, and the other in real time. So this was the TKB project. That was a collaboration between two schools, the School of Technology and Humanities. So we developed different types of annotation. So one was using ink, like we are sketching on top of video content. So this idea that you can also sketch some notes on the side. We developed this idea of marks like the like button on Facebook, so it was inspired by that. So just a very quick, taking a very quick note. A lot of the people, when we were developing this, asked for audio annotation. So if I could speak to the machine and the machine records what I'm saying. And at the time we used text as a regular base of annotation. We use a virtual keyboard. So, and then the challenge was how we can annotate video content. So besides of these different ways of doing, we have this continuous mode. So the video is playing, and we can just annotate simultaneously. Another thing was to create, the challenge was if you are recording at that moment, if it's a real-time stream, we delay the cost of delay, I think it was 3 seconds, so we give time to the person to see and annotate that particular moment that was just seen. And this mode that is like just freezing a frame, and I can annotate that particular file. And as a regular video application, so we created this timeline that you could visualize the different annotations that you made and the different types were associated with the video content. But there was still a challenge there because the things were moving and annotations were stuck. How we can annotate things that are moving. Okay, these are different. Was annotating doing some notes on top of the content, trying to annotate with different methods, but the challenge of doing annotation in real time or tracking objects was still there. So we continue to work on this project, just to so at the time, so it was very popular, it was like more than 10 years ago, it was very popular to use this Microsoft Kinect that would track people, so it detects people and tracks. So we try to use this tracking, so it recognizes a human shape, creates a bounding box around it, and what we did was to associate each annotation to the bounding box that was moving. Okay? So creating this dynamic way. So we also use this TLD that was track learning detection algorithm from the University of Surrey that was quite fresh at that time, and you could just select a particular thing of the video content and to detect everything that was moving on that particular small bounding box. Okay? And we could combine both. So since Kinect only will detect the human shape, use TLD so we could just select whatever we want, for example a hand or something smaller, and just to try to track that particular hand. And the bounding blocks around the person is still there. Again, two more methods to annotate in real time. So one thing was just to make this kind of shadowing. You could just pause it and it was this kind of phantom behind was the real stream. And this kind of just pauses and after just speeds up until the live moment. So we did some tests. This was more exploratory development. It was more like a techish thing. So we did some indoor tests. We were trying to check how far we could go, and also outdoor tests. So we also tested with people outdoor. So Kinect doesn't work since it works based in infrared. It didn't work outdoor, but the TLD worked well. And even we tested tracking my own car at the time in the campus park in the parking lot. So it just took a few time, but it also worked. See it very well, but you can see there is a note there and you can see following the car. Okay. So one thing that we did some user testing with 12 dance performers that were doing artistic residency in this place in South Portugal. The residence is called Espaço do Tempo, and the city is Multimodal. Okay. So it was nice because our designer that was helping us on the designing of this tool, on the designing the icons, was part of this artistic residence, and she combined somehow her work and our work. So, and we did this kind of just very small user test, like one full day. Just people trying. We divided by groups, so one person was testing the tool, and the 2 or 3, I can't remember exactly, they were just performing in front of the camera, so the person could just test. So it was very well accepted. I remember a very nice comment saying how I can download this when I really wanted this tool, and this is for us that developing this kind of software. It's a very nice comment. And a little bit more interesting was that people, when we asked if they wanted to use this tool after a reversal or during a reversal, they said that also depends on the type of the analysis. And one thing that they also said that the modalities, when they were doing the reversal, they prefer to use like the pen, trying to sketch on top of the content, but when they are in this kind of more individual analysis of the video content, they prefer to use text. So this time we compared the different modalities and tried to check what was the preferred one at some point. And a lot of people, after seeing this, were always asking, but it would be great if you can also doing some video editing. And one thing that I do as the second part of my PhD thesis I was studying how video editors worked, and most of them at the time, at least, they were not very, although there were already some kind of interactive screens, touch screens, tablets, and some of these technologies were being popped up. But the software were still developed for usually to mouse and keyboard, and we have these sometimes very complex interfaces. So I tried something new that I call videoing. That idea here was to using a 2D canvas just to paint video content. So what I did here is you could just paint it in two directions, and you could paint frames individual. You could also paint, since frame by frame can be very tiring, so you can just put it a complete video segment, and you see all the frames automatically added. Okay. So I was trying to explore the pressure feature. So how we can develop tools that use the pressure that you make depend on the screen. So we have these switch buttons based on the pressure, how computing the amount of pressure that you do, and this kind of regular operations is not only adding content, but also erasing content, moving content around the canvas. So from the moment that you have this kind of board, 2D board, you can do a lot of things that using a regular timeline, one-dimensional timeline is not so interesting. And having transitions is a very common thing to video editors, and we could just do it in both directions. And how we can play the video. So we could do it regular, just like left to right, top to bottom. So just very linear way, but you could just make this kind of selection. So this kind of, okay, I can select two parts and make a new video, or I can just do some more original things and creative work here. And trying to select different frames and compose a new stream. One thing that is very popular, especially on editing tools, on image editing, it's using the lasso tool. So I developed this kind of lasso tool, so we could just make a lasso and it would select a couple of video frames and create a new stream. Again, I use this pressure to scale the canvas and try to check how far I can go. So this was very exploratory work. So I tried to, again, doing a user test with 12 participants. One thing that was curious from those 12, 4 were experts, people that were really professional doing it somehow, or were designers that were doing some part of video editing or even video editors. I talked at least 2 persons that were professional video editors. And they tested the tool. I used this questionnaire that is the Creative Support Index that explores different factors. And the result was that the video week was very well, once again, was very well received by the participants. The pressure mechanism was a little bit confused. People are not very used to it, so it was people confused by time-based mechanism. So they thought that was just based on the time that they were spending with the pen on the screen and not about the pressure. And the most ranked factors from the CSI were expressiveness and exploration. Okay. So this was my PhD work. And after, when I moved to Helsinki for 2 years as a postdoctoral researcher, I started work on this Sensemaking. So the idea that we can not only have new ideas, but how we can construct meaning from something. So this requires creativity sometimes, because to construct meaning, we especially from things that we don't know before, we have to, our mind has to construct novel ideas or novel relations. Okay? And I think it's very common for knowledge workers, lawyers, engineers, doctors, medical doctors, but also even artists. I really give the example of the Guernica in Madrid, the Picasso work, the painting that's on the wall, on this very big wall that has a painter on the back. We have all the sketches that Picasso was doing. So he was constructing meaning for his final piece. Okay? And one thing that we do a lot to construct meaning is to do some search. And there are 2 types of search: the lookup search or the exploratory search. Okay? So the lookup search is when we know the facts and we have a specific question. We are familiar with the topic. We just want something, a little bit more information about it. Or we do the exploratory search that we are not familiar. So we are discovering a new field and we want to know more about that particular topic. Okay? So one thing that I've worked was in this interface, just to put this on the system, that was exploring how we can do exploratory search on touch devices. So usually exploratory search can be very messy. We have to make a lot of searches, try to create a lot of relations. That we had this system that our case study was doing search on scientific papers. So you could see the titles on the top. If I'm not wrong, the authors on the medium and some keywords on the bottom. So, and one thing that we did is also this interface that you could save your results. But one interesting thing was that you could reuse the results and create a new query. So you could make a new search and have 2 parallel searches comparing. And you could even combine, you could see relations, you could combine keywords and results from the different searches. So, for example, you could just group one keyword from one side, one other from the other, and try to see what the results from that. It was create this idea of a flexible workspace. It's infinity, you can just add more searches. So it has no limit in that sense. So just scroll that. Just moving forward. One thing, so this was for iPad at the time, but also we work and we compare how it's changing using a 55-inch big multi-touch screen, and what were the benefits comparing using a small device compared to the big device, 55-inch multi-touch screen. So we try to use this kind of using multiple fingers to scroll faster. So this kind of revealing some of the features. So it's very similar to the interface. So we just try to explore how using this big screen. So showing the different relations, highlighting the different relations. And also one thing that using a big screen promotes is to using collaboration. So a lot of two people or more can work together and try to have like a brainstorming or such session together. For the iPad version, we compared with what we in the academic world we use a lot. It's the Google Scholar that search for scientific papers, and we had some nice results. We have better visibility, more engagement, so more queries, more queries per minute. So we did a lot of we looked for different metrics, and we had some nice results. I will not go into that. So just a very quick note that we did this version not about scientific papers, but about news. We retrieved news from, I think it was some website about news that was based in Finland, I think if I'm not wrong, although it was in English, it was more like a database of news, and we somehow we did two things. One, it was to compare that particular news with Twitter info and see what we call sentiment analysis, if it was something, if people were saying good things about that particular news or not. And also the keywords on the bottom could be depending on the if they are near the border or more far away, they could have more relevance or less relevance to the search. It was like giving some weights to the keywords. But this is in the digital world. So we took the next step and doing how we can export information in a physical space. So this is the city of Padova in Italy, and our challenge was how I arrived in Padova and how I can search information from a city that I don't know. So in this European project that I worked, so we had a lot of features, including augmented reality, virtual reality, and so the idea that you could use a tablet and you could have you could see in augmented reality information about that particular scene, but you could also have the 3D model of that particular place. So one thing that we did also, it was to combine different inputs and how we can orchestrate that. It included not only a tablet with VR and AR and virtual reality, but also we had this haptic glove that you could point to some place and could retrieve information. The glove had a set of actuators that could vibrate in your fingers, giving pointing cue directions. So this kind of, so our challenge was, so we have plenty of technology, but how we can orchestrate this and not become so overwhelming to the person that will distract the person and even disturb the person that is the visitor of that particular city. So we have this kind of personal profile, like creating like a profile that you could visit some interesting places that you like. you see the glove there. We had to cut the fingers, top of the fingers, because we could not interact with the touch screen with the fingers.
How is it different from Google Lens?
It's different in the way that the augmented reality was just based on a tablet with a camera. So it was not like the Google Lens, where the Google Lens here we didn't get.
No, I mean the Google Lens, you use like video camera with the camera of your phone.
Yeah, it's quite similar in that sense. It's quite similar, okay? Almost the same thing. The only things that we had, one of the partners was the City Hall of Padova, and we had particular information from the City Hall that we could feel about this. So the University of Melbourne developed this vest, and us from the University of Helsinki were working on this glove. So the vest has this way to evaporate and create some patterns also. And one thing that we did was to compare how visual augmented reality and could be different from using just a glove and some directional. And what we found is that visual augmented reality is preferred when faster access to information was desired, but haptic was preferred for more exploration when people will spend more time just exploring the surroundings. And what we detect is people were switching between interfaces in a very natural way. Based on that, I took this inspiration from Minority Report that Tom Cruise is walking in a place and fulfilled with this commercial hat. And I was thinking, if we are in the world that every one of us has some augmented reality classes like the Google Lenses, at some point we have a lot of pop-ups. We can see this on current websites. Imagine this on the real world. So you are walking on the street and just getting a lot of pop-ups and a lot of visual clutter. So when I was in Madeira, Jessica helped me on this. It was a master thesis. And what we did, we compared different ways of interacting with the classes, trying to select one virtual element that was augmenting some particular physical mark. So we compared like the media gestures, we compared like turning the head left to right and just double tapping on the glasses, and also we had like a handheld controller that works like a touch phone. Okay? And our conclusions were quite surprising because everyone thinks that the natural way of doing this, and people prefer doing this with their gestures, like you can see it on the Apple Vision Pro now, that people were just selecting icons and these kind of things. But what we have found is the fastest way was to use the handheld controller. Also, it provided less missed targets. The most comfortable was doing the head movement and the double tap on the glasses, and the most accepted in public was the handheld control. So for me, it's still a question how these companies are working with natural, they call it natural interfaces. But when you do these studies on the field, people don't want to use that. So, however, using the handheld controller, you can have a problem if you are doing some long task. You can create fatigue just having your controller in your hand for a long period of time. So this closes this idea of information seeking. So another thing, the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is about sensory feedback. So not only as a multimodal input, but also thinking as a multimodal output. So how this how the different types of feedback that machines can give us can influence and impact our creativity and sense making. one study that we did that was very short but very nice study that we did in Helsinki was having this kind of brainstorming session between two people, and we had this system that we were recording what people were saying, and were based on that was retrieving words about what people were discussing, and the words were displaying on the screen. So we had 6 pairs of participants, and one that we did, we compared one with the screen and another without the screen. And what we found is that the pairs that were looking more at the screen, they also present a higher accumulation of ideas. So this idea that external cues can cause higher accumulation of ideas by the one sessions. Okay? So this is something that was already studied, for example, from image from nature, that people usually have more novel ideas and more ideas when they are looking to pictures of nature. So we observe a similar fact using this kind of text signal. Okay? Another thing that's a different study that I also helped and collaborated was already in Madeira, that using sound and sense signals. So trying to understand how sound and smell could influence creativity. So what we did, we compared different with high school students. So we asked them to write a story. And what we did in different rooms, we did different conditions. So one was, we considered the baseline with no cues. The other we called it the sound alert, that was the sound of cafeteria, people moving, machines, dishwashers. The other was like more relaxed, the natural sounds of fetching water bursts and these kind of things, and the equivalent sense. So like the L'Oreal ferments, the fragrance of hot coffee, and these kind of things. And we also made this combination. And one thing that we have find out is that there is a limit for this. Depending on the combination that you make, it can foster creativity, but at some point it can be disturbing. And what you can see that the best combination was the combination of the sound and smell of nature, the relaxed sound. But when we got the sound and smell of alert, they are already a little bit down, and their combination it's the worst. It starts to be disturbing to people. And this was confirmed by when we made questions to people, they report exactly that. Okay. This is yes.
How many students were in the research?
How
many students?
100. 100. I can't remember the exact number per room, but the total was 100.
Because it sounds very individual.
Yes. It was not collaborative at all. It was some individual work. Okay.
No, I mean it sounds very like as a preference. For example, to concentrate in an environment of a coffee place with sound of coffee, or like a relaxing and quiet environment. So it's like it's very individual.
Yes.
I think. So
Yes.
it's interesting to
Yes.
understand which kind of people chose that.
Yeah. I think we could took this study a little bit further. One thing that we never studied was the output of the story, and compare the different stories. That was something that was suggested at some point.
Just a question.
Yes.
When you say participants felt more creative, so what is the measure of creativity that you're feeling? You're feeling that you are being creative?
I think that was based on a particular question about that. So do you feel
It's more like they feel more inspired, but in the same there is no productivity being measured, right?
Yeah.
Another question is
Yes.
that I don't know if I got it, because it was like saying, it was 2 lines saying that if you are having all this information coming from the screen, and you were having more ideas.
Yes.
But then, but the ones that were having extra information from the screen were having even more, and I got a bit confused.
Okay.
This one, the
Okay.
external
The
higher accumulation.
The external cues there were the words that were coming from the screen. Okay. So what we consider external cues is the words that are coming from the screen.
Oh, so, okay, good. So
Okay.
it's still part of the system, not.
Yes, exactly. Because the other comparison was with no external cues, just two people seated together and trying to have some kind of brainstorming. So this was just a prototype. We didn't test it properly. It was deployed but not tested in a more formal academic way. This was we call the Sensemaking. The idea was to have you could just sit on this capsule and have some sound and light stimuli. And this was a collaboration of a company from Madeira, and this was deployed on Cristiano Ronaldo Hotel. You could enter in the lobby and sit there, but unfortunately we didn't have the effort to have some more academic tests on this. So just to conclude, the lessons learned were about sensory feedback. It can shape your space, you can enhance creativity, but at some point you have to be, if you are designing this type of things, you have to be careful, not overwhelm a person, because at some point you could be promised just otherwise. And multimodal interactions can promote fluidity of actions. It can merge the two creative activities, exploring solutions, what if and composing artifacts, facilitate the switch between these two activities that I pointed out at the beginning, that were discussed by Schneiderman, and could promote this idea of enhanced creativity. Okay? Just to conclude, two more videos that were more recent, two master students that I supervised. One I was using pen and touch to manipulate information, and the other that I did myself using pen and touch to make some video editing. So pushing this idea that not only using pen, but the combination with touch and how we can do this. It's a challenge because when you start to have a lot of modalities at some point, the problem is always the same in the sense that you have to be very careful how you can design and develop this technology to be somehow natural and not cause uncomfortable and forcing people to do some gestures that they do not want to do. So, and this concludes my talk. Okay, thank you for listening. And you have any more questions? So I have my own page and my social networks there. So you need to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any question? More?
Because you were working with dancers, right, in this group, mainly in multimodal.
I was not working directly with them. We managed to spend one day with them. We had our designer that was working with us was there doing this residence, and she managed to have a full day with them. So they just only tested our tools, so we didn't make the development with them in particular. We had other people doing. So Rui Horta, that at some point was the manager of that place. He tested our tool a couple of times. We went there, we speak with him. He tested 2 or 3 times, so he gave us feedback. We had another choreographer that was also doing his PhD at the time, was also giving some feedback to us. So it was, for the development, it was more a small group that was doing it, but for that particular user test, we distributed
Because from the images that I saw, it looked quite episodic, this connection with
Yes, yes, it was.
And the thing that I wonder is that, you know, for some reason we are an artistic community because each artist is doing his own approach towards, let's say, movement, just to not go out of other fields, but let's keep it moving. So this means that the way of annotation, you can produce an equipment that is helpful for somebody, but that definitely will not apply to other projects. So I was wondering what kind of other people that you were working with that felt that you were providing them, because sometimes you are providing with a tool that nobody uses or just one person uses. This is what I wanted to know according to your research, how much of your research is being connected to the needs of the community, because in the beginning actually, when you started the presentation, I know about a group of academics in Portugal that they are doing annotation.
Yeah.
So the problems that you were raising, they were also having it. How do you annotate movement?
Yeah.
But it was an academic thing because most of the dancers, they don't annotate that way. Their way of annotating is completely different.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we tried, we used to, Riart and the other choreographer tried to have some of the feedback just to try to see what would be the minimum requirements. But yeah, that was a challenge at some point for us as development team we faced. At some point, they wanted the tool so customized that at some point was just a tool for them, for themselves and not for the development. But you can also think the other way around, because there are a minimum set of requirements that everyone is going to use. So if you think about Photoshop or iMovie, everyone use it, no matter if they are customized for their needs. So there is a minimal setup that you can find, and after you can just think about if you want to work with a particular person, you can just customize. Have a more suitable response to their needs. We tried, as my vision at some point, it was to, one thing that I started and my interest was in this sketching over content, because it can give that flexibility. So it doesn't, for example, a lot of people that I know that are studying this kind of annotation of movement, they have the background from linguistics, and they try to work on a lot of on the words, on the words that are being used. For me, I would prefer to let people choose what they ever want to use. So I just want to give a tool that gives this flexibility. And that's why I had always this interest on sketch, because you can sketch, you can and writing. So it doesn't limit you in the language or words that you want to use. So it's quite flexible, and that was what people at some point they were shooting, because it gives you that flexibility. Even there is a curious story that Steve Jobs at some point, when we were developing this at the same moment that Apple was launching the iPad, and one thing that he was saying in his presentation talk was saying, oh, people should not use the pen at some point. So that's why we developed the touch screen. But now there is the Apple Pencil. People really want to use something that allows them to sketch or to handwrite. So this gives this flexibility.
Diogo, can I add that during that time, for what you're asking, there were like a lot of dancers and people from dance involved in the project, and also, like you said, like Rui was also like giving feedback from the point of view of the practice also. So it was being developed thinking on that, but it started in a project in linguistics. So Carla Fernandes was the head of this project. She's concerned with embodied linguistics, and so she was really like wanting to look and do an annotation, specific annotation in linguistics, but then working international projects like some that were being developed already in the Coventry University and another in Amsterdam for annotation. And so they wanted, because a lot of dancers were not sharing the same annotation tradition, some of them. So a lot of people were coming together and they wanted something that would be more versatile, that is not just like, how do I annotate like the movement that I do on stage, but how can we also, at the time people were start working together on distance, like sharing videos and sharing information back and forth in contemporary dance. So this was also a thing, how can we have some kind of tool that could be like easily transmittable to different people inside a piece that don't share the same annotation language. So some of these things were being added. I think even the technicians and the developers didn't want it so much at the beginning, but it was like some choreographers saying like, oh, but I needed a delay. I need a delay because I'm watching. I remember this moment with Rui Horta that he was saying, yeah, but I'm looking at what I'm seeing. I see the video, and when I go to annotate, it's too late. It would be amazing if I could have a delay of the video, so I see it, and then when I look, I'm seeing it again, what I saw before, and annotate on top of it. So some of the technicalities of development came out of this, also, the needs of the practice, some of it.
So now I'm trying to connect with Anna. She's in the island of Madeira.
But Diogo, maybe you can share that, because I was saying already to Philippe in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in this case of the creation tool, it's been like through different interactions. But I know that the Carla Fernandez, it's willing to share the tool. If people here would like to try it on and see if it works and see if it's being well developed, because it takes a lot of like fundings to develop this kind of stuff. And at some point it's great to have like feedback. So it's an open tool. If some people here want to go and contact them or are interested, just reply and we can talk to Carla and give access to the tool.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm preparing the session with Anna. Anna is in Madeira. She's a PhD student that I'm co-supervising. She's finishing. Ana, consegues me ouvir? Podes dizer qualquer coisa só para ver se não foi?
Sim, não está a ouvir.
Estamos, está ótimo. Consegues partilhar a apresentação?
Sim.
Eu sei que não nos estás a ver, mas eu agora não queria desligar os pais, por isso ver se...
Ok, não há problema, professor. Consigo partilhar a apresentação.
So, Anna, she's finishing her PhD thesis. She's been working on how can AI can contribute to our creativity and how the challenges what are the challenges that we can face on that. Anna, can you, okay,
Yes.
you're seeing, yeah?
See,
Let me try,
presentation.
yeah, sounds perfect.
Yes.
Let me try to increase the screen. So Anna did, just to present Hannah's background, she did a master and a bachelor in interactive media design. I think it's called that, right, Hannah?
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
And now she's doing a PhD in computer science, but with a specialization in human-computer interaction. So when you can start, well,
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Rodrigues. I'm completing my PhD at the University of Madeira, and I'm also research at the Interactive Technology Institute. Today, I will share some reflection of my research on creativity, oriented human-computer interaction, a journey from divergent and convergent thinking, and how we can working creatively with generative AI. So, let's start with something that belongs to all of us, creativity. But what is creativity? Why are there so many definitions, so many ways to describe it? Because creativity is a complex human ability. It shows up everywhere, in science, art, design, technology, and in our everyday problem solving. Creativity isn't confined to any single domain. It's the ability to see connections. So is the manifestation of the new and valuable ideas, valuable in their context. For example, in science, that may be a new theory, or in art, an expected gesture. Something is creative not just because it's new, but because it matters within a particular world of meaning. So, how can we be creative? How does that happen in the mind? In practice, creativity unfolds through two complementary modes of thinking. Divergent thinking, it's the ability to generate many possible ideas, to explore, to imagine, to expand beyond what's obvious. And then convergent thinking, the ability to evaluate and select those ideas to bring focus and meaning. Creativity flows between these two modes, forming what we call creative process. Over the last decade, digital technologies have begun to reshape how we think and create, supporting the creative process during problem solving and idea development. They have evolved from tools for productivity to tools for creativity. These are known as creative support tools. These tools aim to expand creative thinking and are defined as digital systems designed to positively influence users, enhance creative thinking and human capabilities. Their goal is not to replace creativity but amplify it, helping people explore, combine and refine ideas more effectively. But today, these tools are being transformed by the evaluation of artificial intelligence. This partnership between humans and AI is becoming increasingly common and increasingly promising, thanks to AI's ability to model data, extract knowledge, and learn from context. These transformations are not only technological, they reshape how we think, explore, and evaluate ideas. AI systems are moving from simple supporting human creativity to co-creating with us, influencing both divergent and convergent thinking. So, as part of my research, I developed a creativity support tool, SciAS. It's an LLM system for sustainable decision making. With this tool, it was possible to investigate how AI can help people reflect more deeply, explore alternative perspective, and reach creative and balanced decisions. This partnership between humans and machines opened the door to human AI co-creativity, a space where both collaborate as partners, each bringing their unique strengths to shape something new together. So, the tool operates in two phases aligned with divergent and convergent thinking. In the first phase, users input the task they want to solve and the system generates three ideas, each accompanied by a short explanation of its sustainability aspects, the context. In the second phase, users can either evaluate those generated ideas or submit their own. The system then provides textual feedback and a graphical evaluation showing how each idea performs across the three metrics. After developing the tool, the goal was to understand how this kind of human-AI collaboration actually shapes creativity. The analysis focused on how people interact with the system, how they generate, evaluate, and select ideas when supported by AI. I studied usability, creative support, and decision quality. But more importantly, I observed how the presence of AI influences human thinking, both in diversion and conversion phases. First, divergent thinking. In the early stage of creativity, AI acts as a spark. Large language models can generate a wide range of ideas, opening up possibilities that humans may not consider. They also help reduce cognitive load, allowing people to focus on exploration, which is particularly valuable for those who feel less confidence in their creative abilities. Then comes conversion thinking. Here, AI changes roles. It becomes a hero. It acts as a reflective partner, providing textual or visual feedback that helps humans organize, compare, and refine options. By offering contextualized evaluation, AI can increase both efficiency and confidence in decision making. Still, humans remain the ultimate decision makers when ideas are ambiguous or open to interpretation. The insights beyond each stage, collaboration dynamics are crucial. Trust and perceived control have a strong impact on the creative process. AI is not an autonomous creator, but a strategic partner, one that stimulates, structure, and critiques ideas, while humans maintain agency over the final result. This balance can be visualized in here in the graphic as the degree of AI support human involvement shifts all the creative outcomes. For example, higher AI support can improve efficiency and diversity, but meaningful collaboration and human judgment remain essential. Ultimately, the most effective systems are human-centered, guiding rather than dominating. Transparency, continuous feedback, and adaptive are essential, but the human stays at the center of the process. In conclusion, some reflections. These reflections show that collaboration between humans and AI can generally enhance creativity across both divergent and convergent thinking, and these insights are limited to a single domain. Whether in science, design, art, technology, or everyday problem solving, the principle remains the same. AI can help us generate ideas and evaluate them, and act as a reflective partner, while we humans stay in control, bringing meaning, intention, and context to the creative process. Thank you. This is my quick presentation.
Thank you, Anna. I'm going to do one thing, ask people for questions, but I will try to do it in a different way. So I will turn on my camera, so you can see this. And if someone has a question, I will bring it up to you. So you can see us here. Let me start taking the blur. Backgrounds. So you can see us good. So this is where we are. Good. This is your audience. You can see them. As I invite you.
Hello, Anna.
Okay. So if any of you has a question, I can just bring the laptop to you.
Yes, a different topic, I guess.
Yes. Hello, hi Anna. Thank you so much. I'm not sure. It's a question that it's not really like has to do specifically with your research, but maybe because you're in this field, maybe you can answer, or maybe one of you will know. So I was wondering if there is a AI tool that creates a choreography yet. If you know this kind of tool, then curious.
Choreography?
Choreography.
Yeah.
Like I'm writing here, please AI create a modern choreography for the lyric song, time of my life, I don't know, whatever. And he's like creating the, if you know, I don't know. I don't know this tool, and maybe you know.
I don't know about this context, but I know if you're using the right metrics in your AI, it's possible. Yes, question the AI to generate choreography or a dance or music. It's possible with the correct metrics. In the prompt, you put in the prompt
Yeah.
correct metrics out. Yes, it's
Yeah.
possible.
Wow, interesting. I haven't tried that. I tried music, but I haven't tried the choreography. So I was.
You need to try because
I
this
will try.
AI is very tricky.
Mm.
Yeah, but when you using the right matrix in the prompt, you have an answer, a good answer,
Interesting.
and you can adjust the temperature. It's a parameter of the AI, and I guess is the higher temperature is more creative, and low temperature is less creative. So it's depending on your.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was curious about.
I think I can give the example immediately of one of the projects that were here this week, because there was a project, This Isn't Real, and so they teach they give a lot of information about sequences of like her usual patterns of moving to this model of her body, and then they ask like AI to generate some kind of sequences of choreography. But of course, this depends on what you understand for the term of choreography, right? Because if you're talking just like the movement, the whole dramaturgy of the sequence of the mediums that you're using to create the choreography, in this way you're using also the different models with instructions for thinking the dramaturgy of a dance piece.
Yeah.
But if it's just like movement sequences, there are like a lot of experiments, like this one that was here this week with This Isn't Real, that she teach the machine different routines of movement of her vocabulary, let's say, and then to say, like, okay, now bring me something out of my vocabulary out. And the machine give back through this virtual model, this avatar of the body, the movement back. But of course, then there's the question of like that they had, what is to learn a movement from this avatar? That doesn't have like the empathy, doesn't have like the expression in the body, doesn't have like the feeling of gravity. So it creates different layers of a new body that you're learning with. But there's already like some examples doing this, and also, for example, Greek that is here next to you, you can talk to him. he was also part of another piece that was doing the collective cadence, and they were also maybe he can speak a bit about that, because they were also working with AI also to think a bit part of the dramaturgical aspect of the whole piece, and it was like inside, like the tension, because this, Anna, you were talking about the temperature, and I remember like in your piece when we were like discussing for them, it was a very important aspect.
For control and for
It was struggling for control, became a part of the piece in their creation, and the temperature. I remember when we were playing with that aspect with Simone, saying like that, asking it for me even more. Because reliability was not working in how they were expecting from AI. It was not that, isn't that reliable how sometimes we expect. And so like playing with temperature, I remember like one day that Simone was very happy because okay, so this I can play with because it's getting crazier and more creative and more
like the
hectic.
divergent model.
More divergent and crazy. So yeah, that's
But it can also create like the dramaturgy of the performance.
well, he's already like really deep.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't call it creating. Like, you're you're the one who's instigating the thing, who's defining the parameters. Like the AI doesn't have the artistic impulse, doesn't have the creative spark or whatever. So you're still responsible for what you do. Even if you decide to give all the control to the AI, you're still, instigating the project. And I mean that's my view. I think you're still responsible even if the AI does everything, because you made it. So it's not easy. I mean, even if it were possible, which is not.
Yeah.
I mean, it is to a certain very basic.
I think,
Kind of philosophic
Yeah.
talk.
Well,
Because
but
it's
yeah, but
like,
also it has very practical implications. It's just when you're dealing with human performance and so on, like who who takes the responsibility for it?
no, that is the question. Like if you brings like if you let him do all the control and you just let him like the mission, please create
Yeah.
dance performance, and so is I don't have the answer. I'm just it's a question.
most of the projects that we're trying to do it, I think when Greg saying it's part of the responsibility, is then there's this question of the aesthetic value, that the AI has a lot of bodies to live in to get that kind of aesthetic feeling that a lot of choreographers and dancers have, that is very personal and sometimes it's very difficult to translate it into a prompt. So I think it's a cool thing that is happening when we have these kind of philosophical questions about this is that it makes you think more about your aesthetical way of thinking, how you prompt people to work with, to create something, to what's your aesthetic thing. Sometimes you're not used to articulate this into words. You look to search and feel it and sense it along the way. So nobody from people working was able to just give control to AI that I've seen working with it, because they can't resist. They don't, it's not the first thing like, oh, amazing, thank you. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it gets to that point, but I haven't seen it with people testing it to a moment that they go like, oh, this is amazing, I couldn't do better. I haven't seen it.
But do you know like the movement right, like Ktav Noir, Oveshkor Nabo,
Yeah.
you know?
So you're saying like creating the variations of just the composition of the movement through that?
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
work on codes, you know.
Yeah.
So like writing the code. Of
Yeah, if it's just the codes, maybe that's a fun thing. Like the other one was the body learning to the body was a challenge. But of course, if you just have like a sequence of codes of movements, they can give you, it's of course something great to play with and to create with.
Yeah.
But then it's the question, this is a kind of a tradition of the thing. If that is the concept, if you're just happy with that suggestion, if you keep with it, if it's important for you just to follow that order, because it's a suggestion. And how do you ask for that sequence of codes? It's what Grigor is saying. How do you ask it? It's like, are you choreographing the sequence of codes and he's just giving you the answer? So
Yeah.
this is the interesting
Perhaps
philosophical
we can move to your philosophical.
Yeah, I think we need a break and then we can move to ours.
Any more questions to Anna before I
Thank you, Anna.
disconnect? No? Anna, thank you so much for your result. It was great.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I would do it while I'm presenting it. I'm David Santos. I'm also from Graphic Technologies Institute in Lisbon, Portugal. And it's a pleasure to be here with you guys and to do this talk a bit of this intersection for me of philosophy, performing arts, and emerging technologies. We live in an area where artificial intelligence increasingly challenges our ideas on creativity. As AI becomes involved in creative fields, producing music, generating visual arts, and even suggesting dance choreographies, like you're saying, there is a temptation to believe that creativity can be entirely mapped and replicated by machines. But as digital intelligence expands, I find myself returning to a more fundamental question. What remains uniquely human in creativity? My work over the past years has sought to explore that question, to recenter the living, sensing, creative body, the body as a source of knowledge and imagination that no machine can replicate. The title of my presentation is The Emergent Power of the Body, Creative Intelligence Beyond the Digital. It builds upon the concept I developed in my doctoral research, Emergent Embodied Creativity, a study connecting philosophy of science and art with performing arts practices such as contact improvisation and social presence in theater. Through these practices, I investigated how the body generates knowledge and creative intelligence that surpass digital simulation. So let me begin mostly with the question that guided most of my investigation, that is, what can a body do? Some of the motivation in my research questions, like knowledge is enacted through action and perception. It is not a representation, but a lived process. Eugene Gendling deepened this understanding through the notions of felt sense and kination, showing that a pre-verbal bodily awareness precedes conceptual thought and guides creation. The felt sense, I have to say this again. Eugene Gendling deepened this understanding through the notions of felt sense and kination, showing that the pre-verbal bodily awareness precedes conceptual thought and guides creation. The felt sense reveals that imagination is not detached from physical, but rooted in bodily movement and sensation. Richard Chesterman, another person that I looked into, sorry, that's why this was being weird. Sorry, I was making a big jump here. I was trying to be fast for you, Philip. And I'm making a big jump here. I was like, this is not making sense, but I was really trying. Okay. So I went back to the body. I was like, yeah, this is like David takes two. David takes two. So, the research questions. So, mostly this research was born from personal and professional ingratitude that I had. After more than 20 years working as an artist, teacher, and researcher, I realized that in most discourses about creativity and innovation, the body appeared as secondary or even invisible. Yet in my artistic practice, I had repeatedly witnessed the intuitive and transformative power of the body, moments when movement itself produced understanding and creation. From these experiences emerged several questions. What can a body do to inform the creative process and production of knowledge? How can we unveil the creative powers of the body that inform the emergence of knowledge and artistic creation? And what characterizes what I proposed as emergent embodied creativity? To answer these, I created an interdisciplinary dialogue between philosophy, cognitive science, and performing arts practice, observing how knowledge emerges from the lived experience of the moving body. So some of the theoretical foundations of what can a body do in my work stands on the Spinoza statement, no one has yet determined what the body can do. And in opposition to some people that I've heard, even a professor in artificial intelligence, when I asked him this, he was saying like, yeah, but we know already what the body can do. And I said like, no, you don't. But do you know what like a mechanic body do that he builds, but we don't know yet determined everything that what the body can do. Spinoza's non-dualistic understanding of reality shows that body and mind are not separate, but two aspects of the same substance. Thinking, feeling, and acting belong to one continuous process. Deleuze and Guattari, in the other extent, had this view of describing art as composed of affects and percepts, clusters of sensation that arise through the body. Creation for them emerges from vibration and from the sensitivity of the body to the sources and forces of life. Masumi, on the other hand, emphasized that human body's dual abilities, are mainly to move and to sense, are inseparable. And that movement itself is a process of becoming, where creativity occurs as emergence. From the cognitive sciences, Francisco Varela's enactive approach also shows that cognition does not occur in isolation inside the mind, but arises from the dynamic interaction between body and environment. Knowledge is enacted, let me see if I found right, yes I am. Knowledge is enacted through action and perception. It is not a representation, but a lived process. Eugene Gendlin deepened this understanding through the notions of felt sense and kinesian, showing that a pre-verbal bodily awareness precedes conceptual thought and guides creation. The felt sense reveals that imagination is not detached from the physical, but rooted in bodily movement and sensation. On the other hand, Sensemaking somaesthetics, that is being applied in a lot of technological processes of designing new devices, reinforces that the body has an active, reflective, and creative medium of knowledge. Cultivating bodily awareness for Sensemaking is not only aesthetic, but philosophical and epistemic. Together, these perspectives build a conceptual framework that recognizes the body as an active agent of sensitive and creative knowledge, an understanding that becomes particularly relevant when we consider the rise of artificial intelligence. On embodied creativity and artificial intelligence, thinking a bit about this connection, I put here like a picture of the project of Greek, here. That was already like working with embodiment and artificial intelligence. In recent years, artificial intelligence has entered fields once thought to belong exclusively to human creativity. This development forces us to re-examine what creativity truly is and where it originates. AI functions by processing information and generating combinations based on data patterns. It can simulate creative results, but cannot live the experience of creation itself. While AI reproduces structures of creativity, the human body enacts creativity through sensation, through relation and transformation. From an enactive perspective, knowing and doing are inseparable. Cognition arises from the sensory-motor interaction between body and the world. AI, by contrast, operates without embodiment. It processes symbols but does not perceive or feel the symbols in itself. It cannot experience the emergent and unpredictable movement from which creativity arises. Sensemaking reminds us that the body is not a passive instrument, but a participant in meaning making, even while we're working with AI and doing results. Through its capacity to affect and be affected, the body creates its significance in real time. This embodied awareness is what distinguishes human creation from digital simulation. Rather than opposing embodiment and technology, we may understand that the intelligence of the body can inform the design of technologies themselves. So there's something in looking into this power of the body that is not just opposing technology, but also inform how we design them to better serve the powers of our bodies. Technologies can learn from the body's capacities for attention, adaptation, and emergence, instead of merely reproducing the surface of our outcomes of the experience. The study of embodied creativity can clarify a bit not only what machines lack, but also what they might learn, a creativity that is situated, effective, and alive. For doing also this, I looked into some case studies while I was working and doing my PhD. One of the case studies was contact improvisation and material for the spine, mainly developed by Steve Paxton. And with this, I was moving and trying to have this dialogue between theory and practice, between philosophy and science and performing arts. That is mainly my background, but the PhD was in this context of philosophy of science, art and technology. And in the study of contact improvisation and Steve Paxton's material for the spine, This dance practice proposes a direct relation between movement, sensation, and creation through improvisation and somatic attention. Paxton's work explores the body as sensation, as generator of affects, and as producer of knowledge. He systematized the training of sensitive attention and of relation between form and sensation, showing how the body thinks in movement, reacts to the unpredictable, and constructs embodied knowledge. Through long experience and observation, I came to recognize contact improvisation as mainly a kind of laboratory of sensory, cognitive, and aesthetic investigation. Improvisation in movement is more than an expressive resource. It is a field where perception, decision, and creation happen simultaneously. From this perspective, contact improvisation shows that intelligence of the body operates through real-time sensing and affect. The way one body affects and is affected by another becomes, for me, a proto-insight, a preconceptual form of understanding that knowledge is enacted through action and perception. It is not representation, but a lived process. Gandlin deepened this understanding through the notions of felt sense and kination, by showing that pre-verbal bodily awareness precedes the conceptual thoughts and our ideas that guide creation. Felt sense in itself reveals that imagination is not detached from physical, but rooted in this body experience. This resonates with Masumi's notion of a zone of indeterminism. This word in English. This resonates with Masumi's notion of a zone of indeterminacy. Am I saying it right? Indeterminacy? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Indeterminacy, where affect generates condition for emergence. In such moments, the duality of interior and exterior dissolves. Paxton's idea of the chromosphere describes this continuum between inside and outside, where awareness bridges body and mind through the dance of consciousness. Improvisation thus becomes a space for emergent embodied creativity, an encounter between bodies' gravity, momentum, and perception, where knowledge arises from direct experience. Artificial systems, in contrast, operate through predefined algorithms. They analyze data and execute actions according to prior models. They lack the real spontaneity, the effectivity, the unpredictability that make embodied creativity so rich and complex. The improvising body acts from relation, not instruction. It creates by being moved and as much as by being moved. The second case study that I looked into my practice was social processing theater. This is a methodology that was created by Arwana Hayashi in collaboration with Otto Scharmer at the Presencing Institute from the MIT. I discovered the practice while searching for approaches that could illuminate some of the questions of my thesis research. SPT, as I here will try to call social processing theater, integrates body, mind, and social awareness in collective processes. Its exercises, such as like the 20-minute dance, stuck, village, or 4D mapping, invite participants to develop an attentive presence toward the body, the group, and the space. Through mindful movement, participants make visible the invisible dynamics of a social system, and they cultivate co-sensing and co-creation. SCT expands the notion of embodied creativity beyond the individual. It can show that creativity can emerge from the relation between bodies and systems, activated by sensitive attention to both the physical and the social field. In these collective situations, transformation arises from the embodied perception of what is unfolding in real time. What is there has potential already being manifested in these bodies. And only by attuning to these powers of the body, they can reveal new alternatives of emerging futures for them. The practice highlights the body's ability to elevate patterns of perception, sensation, and affect into awareness, to transform invisible processes into visible gestures. It reveals that the movement of emergence requires a special quality of awareness, grounded in the present moment and open to transformation. This mindful attention creates conditions for creative emergence and for an expanded understanding of the body's epistemic potential. Through workshops and interviews with some of the practitioners, I observed how SPT can function as a bridge between individual knowledge and systemic change in some of the societies. It demonstrates that the body can act as an agent of transformation, not only for the self, but for the collective system, showing that creativity can unfold as a social and relational event. So a bit on my concept that I tried to develop with my thesis, with the analysis of both case studies together with the philosophical, let me see if I'm still right, yes. Together with the analysis of both of these case studies and the philosophical framework, they led me to propose the concept of emergent embodied creativity. This concept defines a dynamic event in which defines a dynamic event in which creation and the creative processes arise from the emergence of embodied knowledge. It manifests through a deep quality of being mindfully aware of the embodied knowledge that is emerging through inaction and informing the creative process. To experience a true movement of knowledge and creation that results from emergent embodied creativity, there must be, at the same time, living body movement, somaesthetic powers, embodied knowledge emergence, and creativity. It is a body improvised in movement, unfolding in real time and revealing emerging creative potentials. The investigation identified a set of conditions that favor this emergence: refined sensory attention, somatic attunement, suspension of rational control, openness to the unexpected, and continuous practice of awareness and movement. When these conditions converge, the body mediates the relation between sensation, thoughts, and creative action, becoming an epistemic agent in the act of creation. Although the moment of insight may appear purely mental, and not mental like saying like this, but yeah, purely mental, it is often preceded by a felt sense, a sensitive pre-verbal listening of the body that guides creative decisions. Emergent embodied creativity therefore recognizes that creation is not an abstract act of the mind, but an event that takes form through the living interaction of body, movement, and the world. So a bit on some of the applications and future directions that this may take. Some of these results and the research, they could demonstrate that the body is not merely instrument of expression, but an active epistemic agent capable of knowing, thinking, and creating. This understanding opens several paths for practice and reflection. In artistic education, it can suggest teaching methods that value movement, somatic intelligence, and embodied awareness in the creative process. In innovation, it points towards collaborative and mindful environments that integrate sensitivity and presence in the generation of new ideas. And in technology, it calls for designing tools centered on the somatic experience of the user. That's why somaesthetic also is being so applied in design of interaction tools. These questions connect directly with my ongoing work in MODINA, the project that we're here today, bringing this talk, an European project exploring this interconnection also and relation between dance and artificial intelligence and technology. Here we can also investigate how these digital systems might interact with rather than imitate human creative intelligence. How they can learn from the unpredictability, the affectivity and awareness that define artistic creation is what I've been finding most interesting in the project. From this perspective, important questions also arise. Could AI be designed to respond to embodied social cues in real time, participating in creativity as a living process rather than a calculation? What are the differences between the process of emergent embodied creativity and other creative processes addressing the same challenge? How can we identify and value the aspects of embodied creativity within design, education, and collective systems? And what kind of tools of interfaces could generally support the process of emergent embodied creativity? Beyond the field of technology, these reflections invite me, at least, and I hope it invites some of us, to consider how embodied principles might inform the design of cities, educational programs, or even social structures. Recognizing what the body can do in the creative process and integrating and reintegrating what awareness can do into our systems of learning and innovation. To conclude, I return to the question that inspired some of my research: what can a body do? The investigation for me in some point confirmed that the body can know, feel, imagine and create. It can generate situated, sensitive and transformative knowledge. It reveals that creativity is not an abstraction of the mind, but a living relational event emerging from the movement of life itself. The studies of contact improvisation and social plasticity theater both showed me that creation also arises from the individual body and from the collective or social body, demonstrating that embodied practices illuminate the invisible dynamics and both artistic and social systems. In an era dominated by digital technologies and artificial intelligence, well, not already dominated, but getting there, it becomes for me, and I hope also for some, essential to remember the intelligence that already exists in the body, and in some extent we don't know in what extent it can do. Every gesture, every hesitation, every act of attention carries knowledge that no algorithm can replicate. This knowledge of what is there has a potential, of my body is dealing with the future and is emerging, that I can't articulate even into words or even into a prompt. AI may simulate creative outcomes, but it cannot leave the process of creation, because that process depends on being affected, on sensing, on presence. Still, the dialogue between embodiment and technology is not one of opposition for me, but it can be one of mutual learning, also in this tension to reveal some of the potentialities of these invisible processes that go on our bodies. AI can help us understand the mechanics of perception and interaction, while embodied creativity can help us design technologies that respect and expand human potential if we are there on time, doing it and setting our step into it. By recognizing that what technology lacks, we also understand what it might learn, the vitality, the sensitivity and awareness that belongs to the living body. As I wrote in my thesis, knowledge is just a rumor until it lives in the body. This is a quote from Marlin and Batman Glige. Perhaps the future of creativity does not depend on teaching machines to become more human, but on remembering how profoundly human we already are and how much we don't know yet, and we need to investigate in what our body can do, live, sensing, moving beings, capable of emergent, embodied creativity beyond the digital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Believe I did it on time. Sorry for the confusion in the beginning. I was trying to go fast and it was too fast. What? Yeah, you can go and call if you want. I can ask if they have some questions. You can go and call them. I think they are in the other room, right? Yeah.
Yes.
If they want to talk a bit of their piece of tomorrow. Is there any question or commentary that you guys would all? What?
Thank you. I have to go, so thank you.
That's a good commentary.
Nice to meet you.
Your body needs to
Bye-bye.
leave. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Bye-bye.
I would like to ask if you distinguish in the research in gender women and men, because I feel like creativity comes from a different reasons and body creativity and body knowledge, and so I was wondering if there was a spotlight on that.
It wasn't specifically on gender, but on gender or on sex, it wasn't specifically on that. I was also, when I was looking for the case study, even if contact improvisation was mainly a material for the spine was something from Steve Paxton, it was developed with Nancy Stark-Smith. It has a very important role into that. And also when it appeared, it had an important role in how to think the dynamics between gender while they dance and interact together. So it was one practice that was already questioning that, the question of roles and positions. And Arwana Hayashi, being like a woman also creating the other piece, also had that kind of variety. But I have to say that because most of the research and aspects was situating the body so much in a living experience of their own particularities, it includes also all the particularity of each body, not just by its sex or its gender identity, but also by each body difference and its situated experience. So that includes also sex, but it was my specific, I didn't delve into that specifically. But for sure, I think it adds differences and different potentials and experience, but like in the same sex, like the situation of experience, it's so different. It's also so different. But what specifically that intrigues you in that way?
I just, while you were talking, so I was thinking that it's like, I feel like in a way of creativity, so the women body and the men's body, and the difference of the sex, is like it's behaved differently. I can say, for example, that there's some part of the cycle that, like for a woman, that you are very much more creative than another part of the cycle. So I was just wondering if you put the spot also on that differences, but I guess
if we are situating in the whole experience, because I think it's really an anthropological question also, because also that roles or that experience or what we connect as more sensitive can vary in different cultural locations. And some anthropological studies, and there's a nice anthropologist looking into that, and Timmy Gold also looks a bit into that, and in that kind of differences within the cultures. But
maybe
if
it's a different whole research.
Yeah. No, but it's there. But when I'm talking more in the philosophy of science, it's like this body is like the core of this. But it's a good question. Which body are we talking about?
Yeah.
Because a body with if we're talking like a body with some locomotor, also limitations, it has like the same experience? No. Is it still capable of different affections of experience of being creative? For sure. And some bodies can even understand or get to understand. So if we include all of that as important to think the change of a system, amazing. That's why in SVT it includes like the different bodies that was, I want to bodies that were not just dancers, like dancers that are very capable, super fit in their amazing period of their time. But in SVT, Arwana really wanted to work with so many different bodies and to see how this like core aspect of this emergence of potential and somatic awareness works in different bodies, with different traditions, with different learnings and experiences. So that was a question there, maybe not just the sex, but not just like the idea of the perfect attuned body.
We have here the two artists waiting for the piece.
Well,
that will be presenting tomorrow. We just dropped in like quite interesting conversation. We were just invited to invite you for the performance that we will do tomorrow. It will be over there in that space. 7:30, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
We are now setting the piece up.
it's called Gateless. And Urosh and I did it together.
In Düsseldorf. It was during an artist residency program in Düsseldorf. We developed technology for the piece and then the piece. And it's about a group of bank robbers who try to fool the AI system.
We developed it with Mirele. It's a group who helped us and worked with us in Düsseldorf. So in case you're up for it, drop by.
We would love to see you among the audience. It's a really intensive, interactive piece, so you can dance together with us.
And rob the bank. Thanks a lot. And sorry to drop like this.
No, thanks for coming. Thank you for coming.
I know that we're quite busy.
We continue with preparations.
If you have any questions, you're free to drop by.
We're there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to rob the bank.
Me too. If they were able to do it, they would not propose us.
Yeah, they will just do it for themselves. Because they don't believe they have that kind of generosity.
No, nobody is generous to steal a bank and to share the money.
And to share the money.
Nobody will do it.
No, maybe they just need help to put some
One of the things they do is showing that even the guys that are doing the robbing, they don't share the money. They always find a way of keeping it to themselves.
Yeah, but they don't want to be guilty. They want others to be guilty. They want to rob it, and we are catched by the police, and they're doing it. Any other question or commentary, or should we close it?
Do you feel like
Sometimes I feel. It's a good question. Do you feel like I like it? Sometimes I feel.
No, it's just, do you feel like, okay, I'm for sure you're using AI tools, you're
Kind
asking.
of ChatGPT and things
Yeah,
like this. Yeah, I use it to translate some of the things I have in Portuguese.
yeah. I've seen because of the long, there's the signs of
The
using
slash, the slash.
the slash.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just curious if you feel more creative when you're using AI tools or less creative, just like in a sense of feeling.
Because this has like a whole part, this was like, what is like this feeling creative? Because if I have like a very nice creative somaesthetic experience, no. So it's a question of like the somaesthetic aspect, if the sensation of the whole act of creation, if it's the one that is most intense when using AI, no. But when relating some part of combinatory activities that we sometimes associate with kind of what is like considered in the studies like minor creativity or regular creativity. And that's, yes, it helps a lot to generate that kind of like cognitive rearrangement of things. But I'm feeling more and more, and this is interesting also with the research with the artists, this question of the prompting is asking more from me. I feel that I can go a bit more faster in some things that for me, I don't have some patience to do when I'm going like fast with some ideas, and it helps me to go faster to something that I want to see in front of me, out of my head to words arranging onto the body, so then I can prompt it back and rearrange it and rewrite it. And that, yes, I feel there's some velocity in expressing out that combinatory potential happens a lot, but then I feel sometimes it tires me so much because the correction then by trying to get the machine to almost like understand all that you're sensing is exhausting. And that drains part of the somesthetic experience of creativity for me. Maybe that can change in the future in the relation with technology, I don't know. But for now, that's a big part of draining the energy of the creative act, sometimes when using AI. But it's, in the beginning, it's like, there's an impact of, get so much information. And for people that love to deal with a lot of information, it's very tempting. But also, if you have very strong somesthetic experience of creation, that is not enough. It's like, and then when I go a bit with some of the experience, and even in somesthetic, Sensemaking goes into that for some philosopher describing this embodied experience, the middle experience of feeling and sensing, it's not enough when you felt that something strong and you want it. And so the creative act now and the experience with AI is something just a bit small of joy. It doesn't give you its beginning, but then it doesn't. When you feel the joy, it comes from the somesthetic signal that you're like, oh, finally, this is what I'm looking for. So when I began my research, I was looking into the almost phenomenological moment of insight that I believe machines don't have it. And mainly when we think they have it is because our body is signaling, this is what I want. And it's that's what I said, a proto-insight that our body has already, that is dealing with so many data that even AI can grasp with that body. That signals it, this is the way, or this is what I want. And so it helps to get the velocity, but I don't feel it's just a better creative experience than, for example, when this group had this like in SPT, they really try to apply this embodied knowledge to change a system, to a culture, to a community, and even when inviting AI is not enough because people don't have the track of the experience of creating it. And it's not immediately serving what the bodies are already sensing that it's already there. Because we can't articulate it. Like, we are here now, and maybe we are feeling that something, our bodies are dealing with something that is already there. But we don't articulate it immediately.
I think regarding what you said about velocity, I think that one of the things that we as people feel like very primarily is time and rhythm, and something that technology, and especially AI, doesn't take into account.
Yeah.
Like, you want results as fast as possible, or sometimes it goes slow and it's annoying, but it goes slow like it's a side effect. They don't model time. Everything is it's a series of symbols. And some of my past work has been trying to make AIs that that work in time with humans, and sometimes it feels like I was wasting my time, because I mean, is that one of the things that we want? Because there is emergence in neural networks, but there
Yes.
isn't embodiment, and there isn't really creativity. So is emergence just enough? Like if you give it like a symbolic notion of time, will there emerge a I don't know, dynamic model of time that can communicate to our model of time? And I mean, is it even worth it to try? I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I think that's one of the things that are definitely lacking. Yeah, it's
Take the energy, we were saying about that right in the project, there is this complexity. It's interesting, but at the same time, using AI sometimes takes so much time teaching it and doing it.
yeah, but
It's
also
paperwork.
when you're in the moment, like when you're doing the thing, and the AI is doing its own thing, and it's on its own timeline, it's on its own. I mean, it's out of time. It's asynchronous.
It's not carrying with your own timeline.
Yeah. And the only thing it can do is respond to you. So basically, you're kind of the time master, you know. And that can become very frustrating when it doesn't respond in due time, as it should.
For now, it doesn't read these signs. But for example, we can get to a point that we want like the machine also to read our embodied signs of
Yeah.
stress or dealing with the reaction is coming and
Yeah,
feeling
but
stress. If
that's
it's a
the
person, you will
question,
just.
like,
machine doesn't care.
is it even worth to try? Because its emergence and its representation is so different from ours. So its generative process is so different that if we try to get it closer to ours, it won't get there, and it just leads to this uncanny valley where it's more frustration than anything. So I think that's one of the things we saw in my project with Simone. And yeah, I'm thinking maybe the better way is to just embrace the difference, and
That was also a solution in
yeah,
the project.
that's what we got to, yeah. And not, yeah, it's an open question, I guess.
I think we are still in this exploratory phase, how we can work with AI. Because the developments are being so fast at some point that we cannot, we cannot keep up, we can, but the problem is that to reach a final conclusion, it takes more time than people are expecting.
Some things are developing and others haven't progressed. So this sense of time, I've been waiting for 10 years for someone to solve it, and doesn't seem, either there isn't much interest in it, or it's just too,
Because I think a lot of people just grabs this kind of novelty. Okay, now we have the ChatGPT and this large language models.
yeah.
But I think now people, after, I don't know, 1 year, people are reaching this phase, okay, these are the current limits of what is possible to be done or not with this technology. But meanwhile, in this 1 year, a couple of 2 or 3 novel technologies based on that just appeared. So people are really trying to experiment new things and seeing this kind of experimentation. So it's hard to reach. For me, there is no conclusion about if we can do it or not, or be more creative or not, because we are really trying to, and MODINA, it was a little bit about that, was challenging the artists to, okay, we invite you to use AI, so how you can use it on your artwork. So this kind of invitation and challenge at some point, and see how they could experiment the things and see the results on
I think it's also on inviting attention, because it learns with data. If we don't give her, or the AI, or what's coming, with the importance of this data for us, of the sense of time, of the sense of what is for us important in creation, or in dance, or the importance of the body, it will not learn it. It will not care for it, like you said. It will not care for it. So I think some of these projects, one of the good things is also, for me, the aspect of bringing care. this bringing aspect of care of
But is it happening? This is a very honest question because I really don't know. Because, for example, I come from a generation which was the 90s in Portugal, where this new generation came. And one of the novelties of this new generation was that it was less about dance. And they were technically, they were all dancers. They were part of companies, they were having a traditional, very traditional education. But then when they came up as doing their own work, not taking part in companies, in large companies, but doing their work, it was obviously a very original work because they were dealing with the technology available then, you know? And this was a novelty. Nobody was thinking about it.
Yeah.
I
It was
remember-
there. It was there.
Actually, I remember that someone, like almost 20 years after, I understood that actually we were the Portuguese community was the first doing it, and because nobody felt about doing it, you know. Maybe because they don't need it, I don't know. They were having other ways of doing the work. So now all this technology is coming on stage, you know, and it's part of the show. So it was very integral to their work and their identity. And what I'm asking, if you see this, like with this new generation of technology happening also. I ask because every time I see now pieces, everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I don't know. Because what I see is video,
Yeah.
you know, because it's like you use this video and that's it. Which for me is like, this is the collapse
Yeah.
of art and also of communication. Like for example, the moment that you use this,
Yeah, I know.
I'm kind of split,
I know what
you
you
know. And on theater they are doing the same, which is because they completely lost control of space. For example, in the French they use the word mise en scène, which is a very informative word, you know, mise en scène. Nobody fucking knows nothing about dealing with the space nowadays. They don't know. Because they just take space as an image, as a canvas, let's call it, a screen. So they put all the information, all the visual information in the video, in an image that is not there, but the space, the real space that it's there, it's pretty obvious that they don't know what to do. And what is it?
And that's very particular when you talk about that generation of the 90s and the way they were doing the mise en scène. That's very particular.
Exactly. They were combining their skills as dancers with other technologies that were like them that were being available. You know, like for example, using video. You know, it was getting very cheap during that period.
So, but they were using video, but in a way for you, they were still caring more for the mise en scène that people have today when they use video.
I'm really questioning because the thing is that thing is past and it's history, and I saw it and it's done. So it's kind of systematized. I systematized it during time. History did it also, you know. But now it's happening, so I don't know. And then I'm not living. I live very far from any city that is presenting, you know, these new productions. So I really don't know how the level, because every time I go to see a piece nowadays, I really see people kind of quoting and playing it with it. But the thing is that I really don't know if they are doing it.
But you are talking specifically about AI. It's not a question of video. You are talking about AI.
AI and AI is the
or
kind of the
extended
trendy
reality.
aspect, but also the
Extended reality, this kind of
Yeah.
technology.
like for example, Cabral and João they did a piece
Yeah.
which is it's like being inside the game. You know, you just put your glasses and then you are inside the piece.
But for example, I think some of the people are doing, but when we released also the calls, also we didn't have a project selected from Portugal to video, but it didn't happen. I don't know, also like the stage, I think some countries sometimes, and I think this project when they come, some creative technologists are developing a bit of work and sometimes even doing like art installations and things like this, has their own work. And I think, just thinking right now, that in this moment in the 90s also these technologies that appeared as a technology, and artists appropriated them also to use it on stage. But the technology that we're talking about demands a level of skills sometimes that these persons become also like creative technologists, artists in themselves, presenting work and conceptual work. So I think in some of them they are meeting now and crossing, but it's not just as easy, and it creates, I think, even more tension when you go and we see that in our project, for example, in your project, like if a choreographer doesn't access the language of what's going on with AI, when, for example, when Grigory was working, it creates a bigger tension than when it was like on the 90s, like, oh, the video is there and it's projected there. It was a bit more easy to use it as a tool of the dramaturgy almost of the dancer or the girl. And this kind of technology demands so much learning and so much unknowing that what we call sometimes like the black box of what's going on there, that not even sometimes the creative technologists can explain the dancer what's going on there. So, you know, I think this is a big part of this tension now of applying these technologies in comparison to what was happening sometimes in the 90s, maybe. Because in the 90s you took like a week or some experience, or with some people that would teach you how to operate video and play and record it on stage, and you could do it. If you do this now, you can teach a person like him in that almost same amount of time to create a home-based large language model, for example.
I think it has also to do with the education. Like, for example, that generation that was coming out in the 90s was also a generation that was 11, 12 when the first personal DC was being sold.
Yeah, true.
So this is also relevant, you know, that this is the first generation of gadgets, that people dealing with a lot of gadgets. And some of the
that I think is even more.
there was what we called what we were calling them geeks, you know, like guys that really like to play with equipment, you know, with technology.
But that I think is also coming, because I don't know, I think that generation, I think we're going to see it even more. Because, for example, in the piece of this week, like of Liz, maybe she catch that same generation, because she's in her 40s also. So she's not one that grew up with a gadget already. So I think it will come even more, that generation. I think some people are applying it, but I'm mainly seeing it in ways of like when there's partnerships with persons that can also know how to do it, or some others are just doing it. For example, Simona was saying like I use it all the time just to ChatGPT to think, to write, to organize my ideas, blah, blah, blah. This is coming to a lot of dances choreographers in a way to manage the work.
Actually, my question was not dealing with what you were saying, but actually what you were saying was even more interesting because and more accurate, because the thing is that in art was being used technology. Of course, that's why Hollywood was always a big. They were always big because they had money to invest in vanguard technology, of course. But this was not what was kept happening in Portugal. What was happening in Portugal was exactly the opposite. It was people that had no money to build things, so they were doing the thing. They were doing everything. They were dealing with the technology, and by doing this, they created a vocabulary of movement, of making a piece and
just
stuff.
by learning how the technology worked was also
They
part
were
of the
just
piece.
managing, actually, because sometimes they were not even having the conditions of proper theaters. They were working in spaces, whatever it was, like we here in MODINA and stuff like this. People were just managing. But the fact is that not having the proper means to do stuff, they were what we call in Portugal improvise, but in a different, we use it in a different way, which is just do something, not having the proper means to do the work, do it just with whatever is available. And like this, they created a new aesthetics.
I think this new aesthetics, it's coming also how to assume the error. It's also happening a bit in these projects. And I see two tensions. For example, in MODINA we see these two examples. Some people don't want to give control or to show the underlying system that what is going on. That is very different from what happened, for example, in the 90s. I think a lot of people wanted to show the process of applying the technology and the errors of technology and how the mechanics of technology was working on stage. That was part of the piece, almost, like inviting that into the dramaturgy. And I see a lot of people using this like trying to want to hide not to reveal what's going there. And it creates, I think, even more a black box of unknowing and getting what's happening there. So sometimes we just see video, but it's not just video that it's there. So I think I have a bit of this problem also because of Portugal and the 90s. Sometimes of, okay, but reveal a bit, like assume it. It's part of the thing, like make it a part of the dramaturgy. It's a tension there. I remember having this with them when they were creating, and at some point this question of hiding, and I was like, but for me that's the rich part of the process, you know. But I think this is also part of how each artist sees to invite the use of technology and reveal the hidden complex processes or not. Some want to make it look like it's a perfect mise-en-scène. Nothing's going on the backstage.
Yeah. I think this is also how the big tech companies are presenting AI as a sort of this it's this thing that you got just it produces results, but it's very results focused. Is not the process is hidden, and it didn't have to be that way. So there's huge incentives for this to happen. So for instance, the people who first came up with like decent text to image stuff, they were kind of hackers. They were sort of like the people in Portugal who were or whatever, but they were doing it online. So they were on Twitter. They became very visible, and they were quickly taken by Adobe or OpenAI. They were quickly hired, and their innovation was incorporated into proprietary systems and fed with big data and made much more impressive. And so you go very, very quickly, like within a few months, you go from a DIY thing that and a pretty independent and a pretty exciting thing to a mass market product that now everybody just has at their fingertips. And that's very different from like a local scene in the 90s, because now everything is super fast and super global, and you don't even reflect on it.
And I think it's cycles. I remember we had this conversation yesterday behind it, just saying like there was a period that people were using technology, and we almost could see that the person and the dance or the dancer were almost just there like to make it, you see, my arm is here and that's moving at the same time.
Yeah.
Isn't this amazing? And it was just like the gimmick aspect of the technology.
Actually, most of what happened in the 90s and the decade after that was all about that. It was pretty boring. Now it's very easy to talk about the good part because you always the memory is a magnificent filter, because most of the time it was like really very boring. Then the memory is quite fun. Forgets all the boring parts and just stays with what.
So I think it's also a bit of a cycle. I think after we are fed up of like being everything clean, people will start to refill again and go into the black box, and then maybe I think it's.
No, my question was really not knowing, because it's true that every time now I see a show, there is some more obvious or less comment on it, and I am trying to wonder how much it will trigger and affect what are the main aspects of watching the show, which is the quality of the movement, of the performance, the way that you are using space, what kind of subjects are coming around and stuff. Like for example, this piece that I saw in the middle of the week here, for me it was very interesting, but very interesting for a very specific element, because for me it's a piece that...
This isn't real, are you talking about that one or another one?
With the American, with Godard,
This isn't real.
because she's dealing with two main things that have more than 20 years, which is the approach of Jerome Bell towards making the history of dance and of performers in dance, and at the same time the autobiographic aspect of theater and performance that deals with autobiographic personal experience as the main source material to build a dramaturgy. So in this sense, it's a piece with 20 years, but it uses technically. So even the way that she's organizing her clothes and the way she's dressing, I remember to watch pieces in 2002 that was using the same principles, like for example Claudia Diaz in
Same.
company that you were following. So
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
there was new, but there was something very, very beautiful, and this is always very compelling, because finally, what is more relevant in theater? This feeling that you have a person, and that person is sharing an information with you. This is how to build a character, you know, that you connect with that person. It becomes intimate, familiar, you know, because she's telling a life story of like journal d'une femme de chambre. You see, like these very mediocre lives, you know, like these stories of the 19th century, these women that are very lonely, and they have this huge, amazing sexual life, but they never take nothing from it, and finally they're, you know, it's like this very mediocre lives, you know, and the beauty of a mediocre life. And she's telling exactly this, you know, a mediocre career, people always disrespecting her, coming up with these smart-ass, you know, sentences like you have to integrate the movement, you are not believing in what you're doing, you're not doing, you know, it's like these things that look a lot. And then you think about it, but actually it's nothing. It's just these sentences.
But you see, you're carrying and describing a lot of things that you care a lot. That is dramaturgy. So this aspect of dramaturgy that you're talking about, also in the way that Liz was using the hallucination also of AI to think about that stories, is also there. So if it
That's
does
why
an
I asked
aspect.
her. Actually, that's why I asked her, because I asked her how much of the material that she was sharing with us was personal, meaning that she lived it, or was invented. And she answered me, actually. She could have not.
She didn't want to answer you how much, because that was part of the piece. She
I
wanted
understood
to
that
have
she's
like
the cook,
a-
and the cook never likes to share the recipe. So it's fair enough. But anyway, I made the question, not knowing if she was going to answer me, and she gave me an answer. She said, well, some of it was, some of it not. So I guess that this thing of the way that she was using because for example, the movement, I think it's integral part of the movement. For me, the building of the character. I mean the character because you see the piece is made only by one performer, so it's that character. What is relevant for me is that when she's moving, I don't know where the movement comes from. I just know that it's a very banal movement. And she's not doing it in an amazing way. Because sometimes the movement is banal, but the dancer is great, so it's great dancing, even if the movement is not so special. Or the other way around, sometimes you see. I remember, for example, Martin Montefiore, the first shows, it was obviously that we were in face of an amazing new choreographer, even if the dance was not so good. You know, because of course, if you are putting movement in a dancer for 2 weeks or 1 month, it's not the same as having a real good dancer doing it for months. It's different. You know, but you see immediately, okay, great vocabulary, completely original, never saw nothing like this, this is really something. So here you had like a movement which was like weird because it's like, it's familiar, but yet at the same time weird. And then it's performed in a way which is not technically bad, but it's just like a bit stiff. Typical of a mediocre approach. So, but then she develops the piece, and it's pretty obvious that this is very consequent with the building of the character.
So see that consequential, I think, is a good part to look for. It is interesting in dramaturgically how we want to integrate our discourse, the technology.
In her case, I think it was a very mature approach, because obviously she's not a novel.
But that comes because of the care of mise-en-scène and the dramaturgical aspect, but the tensions of how to include, because it will change every time, but how to include, what position do you want to give to the medium of this kind of technology in the pieces is something that is, I think, under strong negotiation.
The thing is that actually I think that piece, I was, you know that I'm directing a group of kids here, and none of them went to see the piece. And I said, it's a pity that you didn't go to see, because this piece is a very interesting piece for a dancer nowadays. Because, for example, this woman, she's obviously somebody that she's been around. She knows what she's doing. You know, maybe she's not Jerome Bell of the United States, or she's not someone big, but she knows what she's doing. But the thing is that most of the people that are about to use AI in the next generation, they don't fucking know, they don't even understand how works AI. So in terms of being creative, AI is a machine of plagiarism. You know, it's a machine of plagiarism, meaning that the best that AI can do is to steal from you. And
Well,
to, and to
some
still,
will advocate that we are the same.
in terms of creative, and to still in a way that maybe, in terms of law, you cannot, like, I cannot attack you for plagiarism, because it's coming from so many sources that it's impossible to build a case with it. But actually, you are not working with real integral part of it, or of the creativity. Now, this is the first level. I would say the level of being a lawyer, you know, that I caught you, you were stealing from somebody. But for me, in terms of as a creative person, I don't even care. Most of the guys that I like are good stealers, you know? Good stealers. For example, we have a poet in Portugal, he's all about that. It's all about stealing. But he's very good doing it. You catch him if you can.
If you steal it, do it well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is not the part. What really makes a work of art is not that you are honest or not honest. It's not a question of being honest. It's a question that do you own it? This is different. Is that if you swallowed it completely, it's like the Indians were doing. They were eating the whites. When the whites they were robbing, they were eating. So they were kind of cannibalistic, you know? They ate because they believed that eating the thing is owning the thing. And what I think is that the new generation, they will use AI, and that's why I'm questioning what is happening with this new generation. How are they using it? Because what I imagine not knowing is that they don't know that they are using a knowledge that they never experienced. And now they are embodying it. And they are embodying something that they don't know, because they don't even live it.
But it's difficult to digest. There's something about AI even that is not that easy to eat. Because there's some aspects of a moment of black box of what even goes within AI that is very difficult to eat or digest completely. And I think this is one of the intentions of using it, comparing to some other technologies. I don't know if you agree with this aspect, because it's not like you understand, oh, this is the whole apple, or this is the whole object that I'm going to eat, and I understand a bit the differences that are within it, the components, and I eat it in a way that I own it then, and expurgate it in a way that you were saying. But with AI, there's something that is very difficult to eat and digest. The behavior of it, comparing to other technologies, is different.
I don't know. We will see.
We will see, but I'm thinking about what you're saying, that I think it's very interesting about this aspect of eating the technology as an artist and then to make an X of something of this through your body and owning it. There's something in the technology of AI that is a bit more challenging with this process.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if the process, finally the process of using this technology is like any other technology. There are the ones that do it well, and there are the ones that don't do it well. But the thing is that the technology, for example, when you are using a piece of paper, you are using a technology.
Yeah. But I know that the paper is here, and I can grasp the limits and kind of the behavior of this paper. And some of the choreographies, like you're saying, they will explore like, oh, what happens to behavior of the object and the technology.
No, but I'm actually
I can't do that.
intentionally the aspect of the paper that because, for example, in our generation, not even talking about the past, most of the people that are using written text, they don't understand the concept of the technology. I will explain. If you are giving a lecture like now, you were doing it, you know, most of the lecturers, by the way, you were doing it also, are reading a paper.
Yeah.
That means that you are more interested in the text
Than you.
than me.
Yes.
Than me. Because you're not looking at me, you're not talking to me, you are reading a text, you're just reading it in a way that I can listen to it. But the experience that you have by reading it is not the experience that I have. It's something different. Now, if you quit the paper, you concentrate in, like say me, I'm being very self-centered, but it's all about the audience. You connect with the audience, and even if you are losing a lot of information that you worked on, because this is what you are doing, working on the information that you worked on, and the way that you created a speech with it, even if you lose some of that information, you gain connecting with us. Most of the academics most of them, it's not like all of them, but most of the academics, they prefer to lose the audience than to prefer the integral part of their speech work, in a way. So you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So now this, we can dialogue about it, which is, for example, for me, it creates this experience very or pointless or at least frustrating. Because the thing is that you come and you share what you have with us in a level that you have to abandon a lot of the material, a lot of your knowledge in a way, so that you can connect with us.
Yeah.
And if you don't allow yourself to lose some of it, you risk losing all of it because you lose the audience.
Yes.
Now the thing is that I'm not naive. Sometimes a lecturer prefers to have one listener, a guy that is really following what you're saying.
Yes.
And this is what you aim to find in the middle of the. So you see, all this is debatable. Nothing is absolute, you know. And the same happens with this technology. It's like, for example, until very recently, but really very recently, less than 5 years, the humanity, the academics, the politicians, the civil society, the opinion making was obsessed with the way that we are with the climate changes and the way that we are spending our energy. AI is the biggest machine of spending of energy in the history of humankind, you know?
Yeah.
And everybody's like using billions and billions, the amounts of money that are being invested in the last 2 years. I mean, actually since Donald Trump came, because now it's not only companies, it's really also government involvements and stuff. And you read at the numbers, and I mean, I don't even know how to say the numbers. That big they are, you know? We are talking about billions and trillions, and the levels of energy, for example, what they are building now, the most of the money is not for the technology, it's for the infrastructure.
Yes.
You know? So when this infrastructure will start really working, the amount of energy being wasted would be enormous. You know? And during that period, the ones that are providing and are needing this energy, we will start having a problem with our own levels of energy, which is we will start being useless. So for example, nowadays, a lot of people, I see it in a small town that some years ago everybody was doing something physical. And now, you know what most of the people they do physical? They go to the gym. When you are going to the gym, you are saying that your body became completely useless. You know? So you're just using it in order not to become crippled. So for me, these aspects are the ones that I really would like to. I think that I'm kind of wondering when will we start really dealing with this, which is what we will gain and what we will lose from these experiences.
When you want.
Yeah, and I really want to jump into it because it was on my mind all the time. What we gain and what we lose, because you were talking about artists or dancers adapting to the AI and vice versa, but we lose the public, or I mean, will we lose or gain the public through this? Because it's now we put a lot of resources into it, and the public has to wait for this. No, I mean, it's another step further now to research how the audience will receive all this technology going into the experience of reception of this work. Yeah, it's like this. You put like millions of money to research, to develop technologies, and then the public has to wait. I don't know. In the meantime, what is other ways of interaction with this? What you are offering them in the piece. So we gain or lose the audience? I mean, you do this for the audience, no?
I think both can happen. It's not a question of one or the other.
Yeah.
Because it depends on, with the piece, like we're saying, it depends on how each artist is using the technology, like any other technology. In that sense, yes, I think you can gain some that are interested in that and they feel that you're like relating to something that is happening in their day-to-day lives, like any other contemporary work. And you can do some others, like Rui was saying, that may feel that they are not caring about mise en scène, that the body is not so much presence, that relation and caring about the audience is not the most important thing for them, so they don't connect to it. I think this happened in different periods of the questions of art, but when art is being expressed, the main focus is not, am I going to gain or lose the audience, I think. So this part of experimentation has their way to happen in the process. I don't think they first started doing it saying like, okay, we're going to gain the audience if we try doing this. It was like, it's there and somehow it's another thing that is contemporary and we want to dialogue with. But I think both can happen. Maybe gaining, I have no authority to talk about this or even to respond about this, but I don't know, just conversing about it, I think both can happen. Even but what we consider an audience of coming to a show, I would say the somaesthetic experience of coming and seeing a piece, and like you say, like if the video is there, if the interactions that is wrong with everything, with the academia mixing these both worlds, that sometimes this could have been a workshop or a dance and then it's a text and it's a reading text, and this part of the whole interaction of these mediums, I think is changing a lot. Even like with these projects between research and art, having more and more like courses wanting and having like practices that recognize the knowledge that is there in the practice, but I think it's depending on how we care, it has to be, but if you're like, who is caring about this, if you want to care. If I think who wants, people are caring about this already, usually, I think.
Well, actually, I was saying this in the frame of where we are, meaning the dance community, because as I was telling you, the dance community is dealing with aspects, with subjects that are there for more than, they are just defining it more and more and more. For example, quality identity. Identity politics. Identity politics. The way that it's being explored nowadays is completely different from 10 years ago, but in terms of the concept. And as subject matter, it's still dealing with the same.
Also speaking of losing the audience, I'm going to have to go. I introduced
That's a
a lot.
great exit, thank you.
Thank you, and see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.
That's a great exit.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that it was very relieving, because one of the questions that I was having for you is that if you have statistics of your audience, like for example, when I was coming here at the beginning of the center, it was a very young generation, very young people, and nowadays I was watching these two shows and it was not so obvious this, so I was asking you if it was just these two shows, or really the youth are not coming so much as in the beginning.
We have a different. No. We have our, like, the audience is pretty much the same.
Because I see the kids in the classes, during the day the kids are in the classes, but at night the shows nobody can.
No, they don't come.
Yeah.
People from the university, they don't come to see shows. Like you have like thousands of festivals.
Well, and this is happening also